March 26th. Our guest in this segment is Will Smith. And Will, you've been on a few times before, and lately we've been talking about consciousness, so away we go.
Well, yeah, this has just been the most fascinating time for me to be working on this show because my consciousness has shifted so much. I mean, coming from a fairly conservative background and then just having my world ripped open by a lot of the things that we've been looking at over the course of the past year. And so as I listen, as I'm directing the show and I'm listening to you talk to all these different people, and then I go home and think about things. And one of the things that I think about is, what about the consciousness of the people who are doing some of these things? And you're saying, we've got to stop these people. We've got to stop them. And then I read about them or I look at them and I think, well, this guy doesn't think he's a bad guy. He thinks he's a good guy. So I just want to open up that conversation a little bit because, you say, well, this guy's, he's fracking and he's destroying the environment. But he thinks he's saving our economy from a crater. And, it's just amazing to me how all these different people have all these different points of view.
Yeah.
And I mean, a guy like Stephen Harper, who would, I'm not going to go into it, but apparently would, get the gold fillings out of his relatives before they're cold. Some of the bills that he's passed, I know some of the people that are directly affected by some of his ideas of legislation, and it's just, I don't think he's thinking about individuals. I think he's thinking about what's good for the country. But nevertheless, he still thinks that he's doing the right thing.
No, I can't believe
I
that.
really do believe that. I think that everybody thinks that they're for the most part. There are guys, trying to bring down the universe and everything, but there are people who are in the highest positions of government who are doing bad things, but who think they're doing the right thing. And even, so let's talk about 9/11, for example, just not about, but if those guys knew what they were doing, if it was brought down by the U.S. government or people, entities within the U.S. government, what about the consciousness of those people? How do they feel about killing people? Do they feel that it's okay to kill people? Do they enjoy killing people? Or are they saying, well, I'm in a position of power and I have to make the tough decisions. I'm going to kill 2,000 people in the world, or however many people were killed in the World Trade Center, in order to avoid killing 500,000 people or something like that. So what's the deal?
I'd say,
what do you think about that?
In terms of the people, let's say, which I believe, that there were people at the highest levels within the U.S. government who were directly involved and behind 9/11. And I'll include the owners of the media in that, because their job following 9/11 was to make sure that the truth was never told in any of their media. So you said, we're making a tough decision, we're going to kill 3,000 people in the World Trade Center in order to avoid killing thousands of people later. I'd say it's the exact opposite. I think they killed thousands of people in the World Trade Center so they could then go and kill millions more around the world in order to profit from it. And I think they knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, I misspoke. Now, what I'm saying is, okay, so they're looking at, well, I'm governing this country, and if I don't kill this many people in our country, the country that I'm responsible for, then thousands more, tens of thousands more will die eventually. I don't care about these people over here because they're just expendable.
Yeah, I think it's more like 10,000 won't die in our own country because, I don't think they care about.
Well, all I'm saying is, I just think that somehow in the people, the rulers, whoever is doing this stuff, I think that in their minds it's all justified, and that they think they're doing the right thing. So this is really interesting because now I can say, well, wait a minute, it's like we're all humans, but we're fighting against each other. And I think that's where the change of consciousness is going to come from, that this consciousness that you can't solve a social problem by killing people. I think that I'm putting this out there, but that's my hypothesis now. What do you think?
Well, consciousness is something that I never think about. But since we started to talk about it, I have started to think about it, and it's such a very important thing, because I guess your consciousness is what makes you do the things you do. Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is, maybe.
I think our consciousness is completely controlled. I think that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do agree with that. After spending a lot of time reading about this and thinking about it, I'd have to say that at least for a majority of the time, that's true. We may have moments of our own, of being able to control our own consciousness, but I'm getting to that same idea that we're manipulated a lot. So I wanted to do a consciousness experiment today, and just to show you how that can flip very quickly. So the thing I'm going to tell you here is, now I'm just going to ask you how you feel about what I'm going to say. Just kind of monitor how you feel about it. Okay. But let's just say that I'm going to tell you that there's a country, there's a place here. I'm just wondering if you'd like to visit this place. It's where, and they chop off the sex organs and put them on display, and they think that's a really great thing to do. How do you feel about that? Kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah, it's really weird. Okay, now I'm going to tell you where that is. It's everywhere. It's flowers. So we have these sentient creatures called flowers. This has been shown in a book called The Secret Life of Plants, that flowers are sentient. And
sentient
meaning they can feel.
Okay.
They have. So if you go in and you cut a flower in a lab, the other flowers know about it.
Yes. Or in a park, or in your garden.
Yeah. So here we are. This is something we regularly do all over the world, and yet we're completely oblivious to how the flowers feel about it.
That's right.
So isn't that an interesting thing, though? Because
but you know what?
this is a
I'm
consciousness.
not. I do think about that.
Do you?
I don't know if other people do.
I think you're pretty rare. Well, the reason this came to mind, I was reading about a book called The Cosmic Serpent. I was actually reading the book. Jeremy Narby, I think is the guy's name, and this is I think he was a biologist, and he went down to the Amazon and he ended up taking ayahuasca, so that he went on an altered state of an altered state.
Ayahuasca
is the most powerful hallucinogen known. It has DMT in it, and that's a hallucinogen. That's an endogenous hallucinogen, by the way. It's produced by the pineal in our body, but you can also just take it. So anyway, he as a biologist was had a very scientific framework in his whole way of dealing with things, and he had to change it completely because he realized that this was a shock to him, finding out that other creatures are sentient. I mean,
well, talk about consciousness. I remember when that book you mentioned, The Secret Life of Plants.
Yeah,
it came out. I mean, it was decades and decades ago.
Right, exactly. I think it was the 60s or early 70s.
So, I mean, what that book said, and I think it said it very clearly, with the scientific measurements and everything else, that plants are sentient. They have feelings. They know what's going on. If somebody goes in and is very negative or bad to plants in a room, the next time that person comes in, you can measure the reaction of the plants.
Yes.
And what's interesting, in terms of consciousness, is that whole story has been, as far as I know, I've never heard it again. I haven't heard it anywhere in the media for the last 40 years. You just never see it. So they've taken away from us that consciousness that plants are sentient.
But you can still go to the library and read about it.
Oh yeah, but I haven't. I mean, that's what I mean about how our consciousness is controlled, because I think they quite deliberately, so we go around totally uncaring, totally unthinking, hey, it's a plant.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is now,
it's part of us.
What happens to our consciousness if all of a sudden we become aware of these things? What if we can feel, when we cut off a flower, it kind of does something to us? Like, I mean, what if you came up to a person and hurt them? You would feel something, right? I mean, you would feel,
one would hope,
sympathy, some kind of pain. So I think that's a huge change of consciousness that may be, because that's what happens in the Amazon. There was another fellow that I was reading, and it's very interesting when I just get all these books, And I mean, like, I've been through hundreds of books. I don't read them all, but I grab them and I read some and I read the conclusion. And I read the table of contents always, and I kind of get these ideas. So another one that I looked at was Dennis McKenna, and he was another one who went down and took an ayahuasca trip in Brazil, I think it was. And one of the things that he got out of his trip was he talked with snakes. And these snakes in his vision said, "You monkeys just think you run things." So what he's saying is that humans aren't in charge. Okay, well, we're obviously so preoccupied with our own little world, with our own little consensus reality, that we're not paying attention. There's some really amazing stuff going on around us right now. And I think that our consciousness is changing, and it's going to change very rapidly. And I think that's what we're looking at. It's going to change because the changes that are happening are growing exponentially. We can't handle exponents. I think I talked about this on another show, that, you know, if you're given this problem in high school, the pond gets, the population of lily pads doubles every day, and it's full in 30 days. When's it half full? And the answer, everybody says 15 days, but that's not so. If it doubles every day, the 29th day, that's when it's half full. So you can backtrack and you can say, well, on the, let's see, on the 30th day it's full, 29th it's half, 28th it's quarter, 27th it's eighth. So on the 27th day, you've only got a couple days left, but it doesn't look like there are very many lily pads. That's what's going on around us. We've got food chains crashing in the Pacific. And in the Gulf of Mexico, we've got radiation going off the charts in places that nobody wants to look at. We've got all this buildup for war, all these, and then the financial system has been detonated. I mean, this is going to result in a lot of hunger because there are a lot of people in the world who are just on the edge. And so when you shoot a bullet into a freight train's engine, and it's going 100 miles an hour, it's going to take a while for it to slow down. Nevertheless, it is going to stop. I think that's where we are. So that's what I'm trying to get across here, is that we all need to change our consciousness and not pay attention to what the newspaper is telling us, because that's not really important in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that somebody ripped off $5,000. I mean, it's not important. Nobody's going to remember that when there are other bigger problems. So I think that's what we ought to be focusing on, and we have to each do that ourselves. We have to figure this stuff out.
And we have to start coming up, I would think, we have to start coming up with solutions for the problems that we're about to face, because, I mean, they're
huge.
Gargantuan, yeah, and they're coming at us.
So the main thing is, to me, is that we have to keep sanguine when the whole world looks like it's going to fall apart too. I mean, we have to keep our optimism up, because if we're negative all the time and we're worried, then we get sick, and we're depressed. So I think those are our main the things that we have to do. It's like we're called to do that to stay healthy.
So I mean, here's us on our little TV show here in Victoria. One of the things I always say is we've got to build our own media. I think having our own media, and what I mean by our own media is a media that works for the people of Canada. Mm-hmm. And I think if we can do that, then we can start raising our consciousness and changing our consciousness, because we'll be getting the information that we think is important. As it is, we're given only the information that the corporations who own the media want us to have, which is very, very dangerous, incredibly dangerous, and it's a big part of the reason we are in the messes that we're in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's my little dream. Let's build our own media. It's not happening.
I think it is happening. I mean, I think we're actually doing that right now. And one of the things that this is working here has brought out for me is, and I haven't been a big news watcher for 20 years. I mean, frankly, when Bill Clinton bombed an aspirin factory because of his dalliances in the Oval Office, I just thought, this really doesn't have anything to do with me. This is a show. I mean, come on. This isn't anything. This isn't a real leader, somebody who would bomb an aspirin factory just to get attention. And that's how I find the whole thing. I find politicians woefully irrelevant to what's going on. They're really not paying attention.
Yeah, but
so I think that what we have to do as the new media is we have to, instead of showing people how horrible we are and how horrible everything is we have to show people how amazing we are, and how we, we're, as you say, we're being specifically or dumbed down, or we're not being encouraged to live up to our fullest potential. But and we're not going to even start this conversation today, but I'm going to lead in to the next time. I got really completely depressed after Fukushima, because to me that just meant 4.3 billion years of radioactivity around the globe, and I just didn't see any way out. But I've been reading some Russian guys, and
I'm glad there was a but there.
so yeah, I was seriously depressed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought, why bother? Polishing brass on a sinking ship. But anyway, these guys are using quantum physics and our own bodies. They're creating a new model of how things work, how the universe works, and our model is flawed. It's fatally flawed. We don't incorporate what we know about quantum physics into our view of reality, and I believe that's truly done on purpose, because we can understand quantum physics and we can understand our potential, and we've also come to the end of our dependence on just our left brain, and what we're finding now is that we have the enteric brain has as many neurons as the rest of our brain up here, but we dumb it down.
What is the enteric brain?
All the brain cells, all the neurons that are in our digestive system and all our organs, and we tell it to shut up, but in fact we do. I mean, if you have, for the example I like to use is if you eat something that your body doesn't like, it's going to complain. It's going to give you heartburn. And instead of listening to it and saying, gee, I should be listening to that, we throw a Tums at it and tell it to shut up. So anyway, so these Russian guys are working in a new model of reality, and I want to talk about that when I'm on the show the next time, because it gives us an incredible amount of hope that we are amazing. Our bodies are in reality quantum biocomputers that we just don't know how to use, but in fact some of our ancient scriptures give us keys to how that works, and we're just unconscious. We read it. We read the Bible, and we don't get 75% of it because it's just beyond what we're conscious of.
And I think what you also said was that this new view of quantum physics may be a way out even of Fukushima.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that these guys are doing some stuff that would just
blow your mind,
look like magic.
Bill, we're out of time.
Well, it was a great show. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.